Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have warmed up sufficiently for a nice ramble update here. Going over as many facts as I can. People have been asking, there's lots of questions. I will do my best to come up with all of the answers and questions I can think of, and also going front to back on this thing, the project up to date. So, started this project for fun. My buddy Mark built a 7-second car unintentionally for fun. We had lots of fun. He built it. I helped him tune it. I gave part suggestions at some point. It was lots of fun to see it go fast. We kind of laughed that it made it there. Anyway, ever since he sold it, we were like, man, we learned so much. We could go really fast for much less, and it would be fun to do. We should do a car where he has a race car and a street car, and he does a lot of other stuff, and it ends up being stressful, and we're like, be fun to just have something with no stress. Just build a car like this, nice and cheap, and I thought it'd be neat to show on YouTube, obviously, because, everyone else can learn from it. And we decided to build one, and I'm like, I could do 8-second passes for $8,000. I don't doubt it. I could do it cheaper, but I could do a fairly nice build, future-proofing a lot of things, and show it along the way for $8,000. $8,000 leaves a lot of leg room in the build. So what we did was we just hung around and watched classifieds and on Racing Junk, and we waited for something like this to come up. And the rationale behind the SN95 was Fox body cars are becoming expensive. They go up and down in price. A lot of people might know that already. They've been going up again for clean Fox rollers. They are available all the time. People act like stuff like this is hard to find. It's incredibly easy to find unfinished cars. Lots of you guys aren't finishing your stuff. There's situations where people don't finish the car. Something awful happens, like someone dies, loved one dies, no one knows what to do with the car, it gets sold. Stuff sits in people's shop, no one pays, car gets sold. People finish the car, spend $15,000 on a Ford engine and trans, knock something apart, can't afford to fix it, sell the roller. Stuff like that. I'm just giving examples. I'm not purposely not trying to put people down, but stuff happens and people get rid of rollers. So Foxes you can grab all the time. My buddy Ackerman bought that roller when he sold his Nova and he built the twin turbo notch. And he's like, a bunch of these cars, I was on my way to go buy it and someone bought it before I got there. If he had a 3-hour drive, someone got it before him. Like the same day. That's how they're there, but nice ones, more expensive ones, you're going to have to run for it sometimes. Anyway, SN95s and 2-valve, 4-valve New Edge, like 2000 to 04 body style, are expensive also. People are all into that right now. What nobody seems to care about is SN95s, which is good because I'm opportunistic, and what's funny is Fairmonts are expensive now. I bought them because they were $300 to $600, so they aren't anymore. What's funny is we picked up this roller for $2,000. We almost got it with wheels and tires, which would have been really nice. We bought these wheels and tires pretty cheap. They're just used rims and tires, front and back, no new tires or anything. But the story is, for $3,000, he was going to sell it with like Weld RTSs or something crazy. But, I mean, that would have blown the budget out a little bit, but it would have been cool to have. I also could have sold those, but I digress. So, the car came with... I did a video when we picked it up, and I look it over, and I don't think the guy selling it knew 100% of everything in it. Maybe he did. I didn't really get to catch most of the article. I'm like, Mark, let's get it. $2,000, let's get that thing and get the ball rolling on this project. That's the winner. $2,000 for a rolling chassis is a great place to start. It leaves leg room to do other dumb stuff we want to do instead of stuff we have to do because of the budget. So, this car came with a manual rack, a Flaming River brand new manual steering rack. It came with an aftermarket column here, the steering assembly here, that came with it. It came with the bump steer kit on the Flaming River rack. It has QA1 adjustable shocks on it already. It has I believe this is a UPRK member and UPR A-arms, and it already has a coilover kit of which I'm uncertain. You can see here these are QA1s, or at least they have QA1 stickers everywhere. These are caster camber plates. Other people mention that they're supposed to be spacers. I know some of them do. This one does not. This car already came with manual brakes. It already had the booster deleted. It already had brake lines in the car, unfinished. It already had fuel lines in the car. These are the fuel lines that came with the car. 10 feed and 8 return. It came with a coolant overflow bottle, which I have to find and we have to actually hook up. It came with... What else is in the front of the car? I think that's it for the front. It came with a proportioning valve. It came with that. It came with the seats in the car. Someone already did the torque boxes and welded and bolted everything underneath so you can't rip the lower control arms or upper control arms. What does that go to? Uppers. So you can't screw up the uppers. It has a welded anti-roll bar in the car already. Someone already did coilover inboard style suspension so you could do a mini tub. They did not do a mini tub. It is stock wheel tubs. It has an 8.8 in it with axles already. It had 390 gears or 410s. I'm unsure. But normally, you know, Ford people have a 410. So it has like that ultimate 8.8 diff brace, which whatever it's worth. And it came with a fuel cell with a sending unit. It came with a aftermarket steering column for in the car. It came with a detachable steering wheel in the car. It came with these 2 race seats, which may not be worth anything, but hey, it had seats, boys. It came with carpet. It came with the dash. The other thing is it came with a rear seat delete. We folded it down to run wires and everything else, but we have to bulkhead that and flip the carpet back up. But there's the whole carpet piece that closes off the back half of the car. The whole back is black carpet then. It looks great. It came with... I already had the brakes and everything on it. They just weren't connected. It had like Jeep wheels on it. You couldn't even put the wheels on with the calipers, so the guy took the calipers off every corner. What else, man? It came with a lot. The rear bumper already had the battery disconnect and charging ports in it. Just haven't put the rear bumper back on. I think that's... I mean, it's funny to say that's it, because that's so much stuff. And there might be some things I'm missing, but it came with all of that for $2,000. So, incredible deal. Tubular, everything in the front end, everything already done in the back of the car. It already has aftermarket suspension and coilover and tubular and inboard and like everything you could think you would ever do. Fuel lines are already in the car. So, $0 spent on all of that. So next we moved on, and I thought it would be funny to put a 4.8 in, because I like doing that, because it's harder and people don't think you can, and they're always surprised when it happens. Anyway, if you've been watching long enough, you realize why, but still some people ask. They're like, why would you do a 4.8? Because it's harder and people think they're garbage, and it's a bigger slap in the face than thumbing your nose at them when you do it anyway. So that's why, and I like them, because they're cheap. Because again, people are spending astronomical amounts of money on Fox bodies and Fairmonts. You can buy a 4.8 and an SN95. This guy, I thought he was gone, and now he's going to chirp the whole time. My lord, not going to be able to shoot a video like that. Dude, go home. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. You're drunk. Holy crap, come on, dude. I gotta find this guy. Get rid of him. So back to the 4.8. Also, I was asking a bunch of my friends if they had an extremely crappy 4.8 liter. And one of them was like, I have a super high mile, paper head gasketed, like old 4.8. I said, I want it. How much? He said $200. Awesome. Mr. Cricket. Where are you? In the wall? I grabbed this vacuum and I vacuumed everything back here. I pulled everything out. He's being a jerk. You're a jerk. Guys, I found him inside that red filter. I pulled out everything and I found him inside the red filter. And I sucked him up with the vacuum because I could not get him out of the filter. So we'll see if he starts chirping in the vacuum. 4.8 liter. Okay, let's do this. Here we go. So, if you've been watching along, I got a $200 engine from my friend, and we tore it down to look at like a rod bearing or two, and put the cam and valve springs in it. And I noticed something when I pulled the timing cover off. If you watch the video, is extremely clean. I was like, this looks like a new timing cover. That's bad news. I feel like that's bad news. If someone was in there, it's bad. I say it all the time, and then ironically, during the video, we find out that like most of the bearings are bad. It's missing the O-ring for the cam retention plate, so that's why it had no oil pressure, so someone screwed up. We pulled it apart for fun. The pistons were aftermarket. They're Speed Pro bore-overs. So someone spent all this time in the thing, bored it over, did all this stuff, forgot a O-ring, and roached the whole motor. Everything was bad. So, a lot of people are like, wow, that was a built motor, you should save it. No, that's a bad idea. You should not do that. Something was already screwed up, it was machined wrong, it was built wrong, or something else on top of no O-ring. The whole thing's a glitter bomb. Messing with something like that is a bad idea, guys. If you have a budget, I just returned the motor and I got another one. So I got this guy, and we pulled it apart and we laughed at how nice everything was. It was a little bit filthy inside. And Mark and I did the cam and valve springs and smashed it back together. And it has a sloppy stage 2, the Elgin 1840P, and it has PAC 1218 springs. And there was absolutely nothing else done to this engine. It was put in, and we put a Holley pan on it to get the most ground clearance with the tube K-member and everything else, because this thing is actually, since we knew this car was going to wheelie, let's get this thing up in the air. I'll show you one or two things. Alright, we're on the locks. So, there's the tube A-arms, tube K-member. You can see the hot side, the wheels, the brakes, the A-arms. You can see the oil pan. What's nice is if we wheelie this thing, we're going to hit the steering rack and the K-member before the pan. So that was one of the things we wanted to do, was get a pretty low pan. We have done a lot of modifying and using stock pans, but they always have oil issues with hard 60-foots. If you look this up, it's true. It's real, boys. So, I'm like, we're going to try a bolt-in pan. Like I said, a lot of this, it's not as cheap as we can do it. It's 8s for 8. It's not 8s for as cheap as possible. So there's some stuff we did that we wanted to do, and some stuff we spent money on, and I explained that throughout the build, and people still get their underwear in a wad about it, but, you know, whatever. Stuff we wanted to try, stuff we know that works. So, that has the Holley 302-2 pan on it, and it even has turbo drains built in. So that is cool also. Also, people continually ask how I like my quick jacks. They are quick jacks. Yes, I love them. They are excellent. I have not been much of a... I would love to have a lift, but man, once you have a lift in my friends' garages, the lift is in the way. The lift is in the way all the time. And I couldn't do anything in the middle or move stuff. These jacks, I've moved them to other bays. I've used them outside. I could take these to a friend's house. If you lift the car, these are dry disconnects. You can disconnect the hydraulic line, leave the car on the locks, and take the hoses and put them away. And they're incredible for doing oil changes and everything else. I mean, if you're not a huge or super tall, it picks the car up 30 inches in 30 seconds. And it's like a lifesaver. People are like, oh, a jack and jack stands are way easier. And I'm like, you're high as a kite. I can't believe you would say that. You're kind of a moron. No disrespect. Anyway, so let's move on. It's totally stock long block, other than the Holley pan, the cam, valve springs. And this had a much older intake, which is up there. See this? This is the Gen 3 truck intake with EGR that everyone's familiar with. And what I opted for was a new body style intake because I know from my testing personally they make better power. And then I had War Performance reach out to me, and he watches my videos and likes what I do and sent me a throttle body. So I decided, let's go a little overboard with the intake, throttle, and fuel rails. I know they help later on. They won't stop you from making 700-800, but they will help later on. It takes a little bit of tax out of your fuel system. It makes better power, and it's just easier to work with, easy to take apart. There's a lot of reasons why. But I was like, well, you know, I added this to the budget. I got it for free. I'm not gonna lie. I got this for free. They didn't sponsor me. I don't have to use it, but I wanted to use it. So I threw it all in the budget just to pad the budget some more, because I figured if I did this too cheap or with too shitty of parts, people might not believe me. Anyway, it has iron truck manifolds, and it has a 2 1/4 inch hot side and a VS Racing cast S475. So this is a 75 cast wheel compressor, and it has an 88 T6 turbine with a 5-inch V-band downpipe, and it's aluminum. Is that the cricket in the vacuum? He's way quieter. Anyway, I can't tell if he's outside or in the vacuum. That's a 5-inch mandrel bend aluminum downpipe. That was not that was not very expensive either. 5 inches is expensive no matter what. So other people are like, "Hey man, this turbo seems low. Do you have a scavenge pump?" No. Does the turbo smoke? No. Why did you put the turbo there? Because after a bunch of combinations, we have learned that this is a really good spot for inlet temps and segregating for power and just getting the exhaust on the other end of the car, which is important. A whole laundry list of items. Seriously. That's one that's outside. Anyway, he's looking for his friend. It's not that loud. That won't be as bad as the resounding chirpeting from that guy earlier. Okay, so new body style intake, completely stock. War Performance throttle body, not completely stock. He sent that. This is like a 92 millimeter. It works great. Stock sensors went right on it. They work great. This is the stock Mustang cable for the throttle, and all I did was I fed it through there, drilled a hole, and pop riveted it, and it works perfect. So that's about working smart too. The throttle cable came with the car. Done. These are faster performance with like 2 or 3 S's. That's the guy's logo. He sells a bunch of stuff on eBay. Regulators, lines, rails, and I've used his rails before on my Colorado, and I really like them. So, and they also happen to be one of the cheapest. So those are 1/2-inch billet aluminum rails. And other than that, this is stock accessory drive. The only thing that's removed is the power steering. We don't have power steering. We have a manual rack, and we wanted the space. One of the nice things about LS's is the water pump inlet and outlet are on the left side. So if you get your radiator on a left side feed and return, it leaves you this giant opening for a turbo. If you place the turbo this way, you have almost a completely straight downpipe, which is important for making really good power. The more bends you add, the more power you knock out of the car, as insignificant as they might seem. So this is, again, one of those reasons why this works well. And having the turbo in here with lots of fresh air, not sucking air off the rad or intercooler, is better also. And you'll notice in my dyno videos, my inlet temperatures are insanely low. So all of this works out. The other cool thing is this is Monkey Fab hot side parts that were prefabricated. The wastegate mount is prefabbed, and then you just put your wastegate on. So there's another wastegate down there, there's a wastegate here. This is a fully divided setup and twin wastegates. Dan, one of Mark's friends and one of my friends, did all of the fab work in like 3 hours before he went on a vacation. Incredible. He did an incredible job. He nailed it. And it's 2 1/4 stainless, I think I mentioned. This is T6. All of this is monkey fab. There's even a support bracket on the monkey fab T6 flange, and the support bracket is here. We did cut out the frame rail. We added a new piece in here, like chromoly roll cage tubing, to replace the frame rail. Just all it's got to do is hold the rad support up for strength, and it's holding the turbo so that none of the stainless can crack. I would like to mention also that VS Racing, I asked him if I could get damaged stuff from him. So this is a funny thing for you guys. I budgeted it as if I bought brand new VS Racing wastegates. But what these are is, I think when I built my Colorado, I got from him 5 wastegates in varying states of disrepair returned from customers who said they were bad. And I have managed to fix them and make 5 completely working wastegates. I think this one's missing an Allen key, but you see how much that's affected us. So what's funny is I didn't even want his new stock. I always buy his junk. I like junk. I have an affinity for junk. You guys might be realizing this after some time. I'm like, send me your crappiest stuff and I'll make it work and use that instead of buying new, just to slap people in the face also. So those are garbage returns that I'm using without an issue. So think about that for a little next time you're having an issue. It might be user error. Also, I wanted an intercooler, and he wanted to send me a brand new one, obviously for the money. And I was like, no, please send me a damaged one. So he sent me this one with this big dent in it that no one wanted. So that's what I'm using. Mr. Denty, and then the rejects over here, and then his cheapest large frame turbo. And they're all working great. The other thing I want to mention now that I just saw it, we aren't using power steering. So if you take a Sawzall and nip the edges and just hit the thing with a sledge, you can knock the bottom whole piece of the bracket off and keep the top piece. So this is the top piece that holds the alternator. And then Dirty Dingo sells this idler relocation kit for 28 bucks, and it comes with the bolts and this 2 billet pieces and everything else. And what it does is it moves the idler from here to here. And 3/4 of the time, if you run this, I call it the bikini, where the belt comes in a big V, if it was like a bikini bottom, it will throw the belt off the alternator when you lift at high RPM, when you shift at high RPM, when you hit high RPM, even if everything is straight and perfect and good. Now, like I said, 25% of the time this won't happen. 3/4 of the time it will. It most certainly will throw the belt all the time. So what's nice is it keeps the stock automatic tensioner, and Dirty Dingo on their website, where they sell this, they tell you if you have a small case alt and you don't have power steering and you do this, you need this size belt. So they tell you what size belt. And if you have the large alt, they tell you the other size belt that you need. So that's another quick, friendly tip. Other than that, VS Racing 4-inch intercooler, 3-inch piping, and his regular coupler T-bolt clamp kit. All that stuff is normal. Stock water pump, stock truck crank, stock coil packs, stock wires. It has BR7 EF plugs in it right now. I have been swapping injectors around. Right now it has Varen's tall 210s with the old plug. People had asked about these quite a bit. I have 3 different Snake Eater injectors. I did do my startup and a few dyno pulls on the 1500s. Right now it has the 210s for some testing. I want to put his 1000s in and let you guys know how far the car can go horsepower wise on 1000s, because he and I believe a lot of people are over injecting. And I think I have said 850s from him too. Anyway, let's keep moving on. So that's the 4.8, the Holly Pan, the stock new body style Trailblazer bread box, whatever you want to call it, intake, War Performance throttle, 4-inch VS Racing intercooler, VS Racing S475. It's not a real Borg, it's a VS Racing version of the Borg, but it's all the same dimensions. 2 1/4-inch hot side, lots of monkey fab goodies, V-banded stock truck manifolds, 44mm V-band gates. All I gotta do is make some dump tubes. 5-inch downpipe, Dirty Dingo aluminum boy, stock alternator, Here's one I missed. EFI Source 3-bar mat, best in the biz. Plugged right in. And other than that, a stock truck dipstick that I resized for the Holly pan. Works great. This is I forgot to mention my regulator. This is a China PQY, and it was 8 in and 6 out, and came with the gauge and its boost reference, and it all works, and it doesn't leak. And I've used stuff like this a bunch of times, and it was $30, I think, on my list. Yeah, it was 30 bucks. Incredible. So I think that ties it up for the engine. It's stock heads, stock gaskets. Oh, that's a funny story. After we got this running, we noticed it would get hot, and we would go for a drive and it would spew coolant, and we're like, oh, what's disconnected? What's funny? And we realized the back cylinder was cold. So Mark, when he brought it up here after they finished all the fab and we did our first drive, Mark brings it up here and he drops it off. First thing I do is compression test all the cylinders, and I uploaded a video on this. I did compression test on this side, and it was like 175, 160 all the way down the board. And then this side was like 160, 150, 160, and then 40. And then what I did was, we believed it was a bad head gasket because you could start this car dead cold, foot brake it, and spew coolant immediately, and it would overheat. So, dead cold, you could push water straight out of the engine. So what I did was I hooked up my compression tester with shop air, about 50 pounds from my compressor, and it was blowing straight into something. And off camera, I pulled the oil fill cap, and there was nothing there. So I pulled the rad cap, and it was like a blow-off valve, and you could just open and close the cap, and it was going psh, psh, psh. It would repressurize immediately. So I'm like, wow, it's blowing straight into the water gasket. So, pulled the head off that night, quick removed everything, pulled the head, and I showed that on video. Head gasket was completely blown out into the water jacket. I don't have 5.3, 4.8 gaskets laying around, but in my storage I did have 6-liter ones laying on the ground. Here's the blown out 4.8 one. You can see it's seen better days. That's where it's going, right into the water jacket. So I was like, well, this will be funny, because I like to relish in stuff that doesn't matter and prove it to people and thumb my nose abhorrently at people. So I was like, I'll get the 6-liter gasket. I think it's slightly thicker. The bore is slightly larger. It'll screw everything up. It'll make people all sorts of triggered. So I grabbed the 6.0 gasket, gave it a light spritz of the copper magic. Not a lot. Don't do a lot, guys. You don't need a lot. I put it on there and smashed the stock head right back down on top of it, and immediately did a compression test, and 140. So it came up, but this side was about 150 across the board and 140 in the back, because she's hurdy boy, and the other side's like 160, 175, so it has a little bit different compression on both sides. I'm like, man, this is great. People are gonna be so angry or clueless or not know what's going on or mad or think I'm lying. All of the above. They're gonna see it doesn't matter. So we did it. So that is the engine combo, I believe now. Did we get it all? I think we got it all. There's a little inlet temperature sensor right here. That might be it. That might be all of it. So there was a bunch of things on the table as far as converters. There's a couple Jegs ones that people say are pretty good. There is PTC, which is expensive, but extremely good. Everybody knows that. And we're working our way back in the drivetrain, ladies and gentlemen. We're working our way backwards to the torque converter. So I was like, okay, PTC, Jake's, some other places, whatever. So I hit up Jake through my buddy, and I was like, I'm doing this, I want to do that. Do you guys sell converters for this price? And he goes, yep, we have a budget series of non-billet faced steel converters that, and I said, I want this and I want this. And they said, we can do that. And it was like $375. It's like $300. It's under 400. It might even be under 300. I don't think it's $275. I have to check my list to know for sure, but incredible price. And it has done extremely well so far. I give it a total A+. We'll see how it does at the track, but dyno, foot brake, trans brake, where it builds boost, how it hangs on, stellar. I was truthful with what I told him, and he was able to deliver a good product. Imagine that, boys and girls. So, The transmission is just a TH400 with a trans brake, Craigslist, online, whatever special. All good, working good, clean. Everything's good with that. $1,200 used. Good going price for those things. And then the drive shaft is, I bought an oversized drive shaft that someone had in an Explorer rear and 80E combo. So we put that in, and then I got a super cheap cross member used and put that in to hold the 400. So I swapped the yoke on the back end with like a $10 Junkyard Explorer yoke. It has a little bit bigger flange. I like to use it. And all the way in the back of the car, same story. We put 327s in. I had 327s from another project that I bought for $20, Junkyard 327s, because this again had like 4 10s in it. I don't even think we counted. We just knew they were too short. 327 is a little bit long, but it kind of future-proofs us, and I kind of wanted to push the converter a little hard. If there's a lot of reasoning behind it, but that's what we're going to try. For this power level, 355 might be more ideal, but from learning and experience and everything else, the 327 might seem long, but the way we set everything else up, it might be good, and it's looking like it will work out good. So, that is it for the engine, trans, drive shaft, rear end. So, another reason why we wanted to build this car was months and months ago, Holly approached me and they're like, we would like you to be a partner / ambassador for our new ECU. And I'm like, well, this concerns me for a couple of reasons, but I'm excited. I'm very interested, but I don't want to do anything funny. I don't want to be sponsored and whatever and tell people it's great all of a sudden. I do like Holly products, and they are more expensive than most of the people that watch my budget videos would like to spend. But I truthfully say they're worth every penny for serious cars, or even if you have a fairly crappy car and you just don't want to deal with issues with an ECU. And out of all of them, I feel like the software is easiest. Now it is a sales pitch. Let's chill. Anyway, there's a lot of back and forth, mostly very positive about my partnership with them, and I think it's pretty positive. It's very cool. Everything has a time and a place and use, but I feel like increasingly people struggle with stuff except for Holly. They don't really seem to struggle with it. If they struggle with Holly, it's them. It's the person themselves, in my opinion. Anyway, they hit me up. They were like, we're going to have a cheaper ECU. And I'm like, this works great with my budget car. I'm going to build a car for your ECU, technically. We wanted to build a car anyway. This will make it, this will make it all work. So this is running the new Terminator X budget ECU. It's $999.99. And you can get some discounts on that if you do like eBay or some other stuff. So that's dash, wideband, ECU, and drop-in wiring harness. This is a complete Holly wiring harness here that's already labeled and in the car. And it comes with oil pressure and fuel sensors ready to go in, and dropped it in the car. And I'm doing all the R&D and handing out tunes, obviously, for that stuff. One quick thing, I cleaned up a little bit of the interior here. There were wires everywhere before. People were having coronaries and heart issues looking at all of it. One thing I did is I got a simple fuse panel and other simple cheap things off Amazon to show people how to do this stuff very easily. So I have like a $10, $15 switch panel here to turn the car on and off and do all my ancillary things. I have a $6 solid state relay down there controlling the bump, and I showed how to use that in the last couple videos. I'm gonna produce some videos once all this stuff works out a little bit better, where I show how to do it. And obviously I give all the tunes and stuff away, but show you guys how to wire it. I did a wiring diagram. It's on the wiki for the SSR to do bump, and it has I got a TCI shifter. I love those things. It's great. That guy, like I said, the fuse panel and everything else, super cheap. I'll link all that stuff. All the prices are going to be in my sheet. I'm still building it out and changing things as I change some parts here at the end. I have arcade buttons, which I made a little bit of a video about that. I couldn't think of a nice switch, because when you want to do trans brake and bump, you want a fairly sensitive, high quality switch that's not vague. Like for starter and some other stuff, you push the button, you don't really care when it turns on or off. But as far as trans brake and bump, you want it to be really clean and accurate and have a positive feel. So I was thinking, like, why don't I just get arcade buttons? And I looked them up and I'm like, holy crap, 6 of them for $11. So that's like $2 or $3 worth of arcade buttons, and they have like an incredible action. They're very easy to use. The dash is thick, but the button is like this long because it's meant to go through MDF and other crazy stuff you're building. So that's all done. It's using the Terminator. People are asking me what I think of the Terminator. It's incredible. It's just as good as all the other stuff is already. The software is extremely similar to version 4 and 5. The trans brake stuff, the staging control as they call it, could not be any easier to set up. It's incredibly easy. Everything is super easy. I'm working on some stuff for closed loop boost control, which I showed some short videos on. That's looking to be pretty good. That's one of the things I want to use at the track. Instead of the bump, I'm going to do scramble. So I'm going to target like 20 pounds, and if everything's going good, you can hit the scramble and it can add a preset boost amount. I'm going to have it add 6. So we're going to test all that stuff out. Also, everything's working great. People might be surprised to see such a nice shifter, but crappy ones will hurt your transmission. Poor adjustment will hurt your transmission. Vague shifts and everything else are super annoying. It's one of my pet peeves. That is like $290, extremely well spent. Very, very, very nice product. You can do reverse manual, forward manual, 3-speed, 4-speed, 2-speed. You can buy another plate for about 20 bucks and swap it on. If you have like a Hurst quarter stick or something else, you have to replace the whole unit. This guy, you just unscrew a plate, swap the plate out, and you're in business. Because I might not have said it, but we think a long-term neat goal for this car would be maybe put a 4L80E in it with a brake. And once this car goes 4/8, since I am working with Holly, what I really want to do and what they want to see me do is swap intakes and stuff on. I have always wondered, I don't see cars making that great a power with the Holly intake, but everybody has them. Some people want them because they're pretty. That's fine. If you can admit to yourself that it's pretty and you want it, that's fine. But I know some people who have an insanely small turbo and other issues, and they put a Holly intake on, and the car makes awful power. And I'm like, if you just bought that for power, and you can't admit you wanted a pretty intake, you're spending money on the wrong part. It's one of the things that bothers me about car stuff and car people in general is they'd rather have the pretty intake and 400 horsepower than this plastic Rubbermaid garbage over here. I caught myself. I'm working on it. That makes 700. So yeah, it bothers me. It hurts me. It hurts my feelings. So what I'm really curious is once this project runs the number for the money, they want me to try all sorts of cool stuff. And this is like a first time that I'll be able to do all that stuff. Try it, let you guys know, swap all the parts. What are they worth? How much power did it make? Is it worth it to you to spend the money for the power? For some people, it is absolutely. For some people, they want it to be pretty, whatever. Other times, they're like, what does it come with? How do I make it work? Blah, blah, blah. So I'm extremely curious to try more of their products while they are giving them to me. They aren't paying me to say that they're good. I don't have to say this ECU is good. I never signed any contract. I just think it's incredible. It's flat out incredible for the money. I can't believe they can sell this product this cheap that's this good. And I think a lot of people are using it and going, holy crap, this is incredible. So, easy to use and everything else. Anyway, we're going to get off that bandwagon again. So I'm very thankful that they want to send me stuff, no obligation, and let them know what I think, give them feedback, and I can tell you guys if it's any good. And one thing I've learned with my partnership from them is that like stuff like this oil pan I didn't even know existed. And my rep was like, I was like, isn't there like do you guys have like a pan that's like the muscle car pan? People say the muscle car pan is like a ½ an inch shorter than a truck and it's kind of a waste of money. And other people say this pan sucks. And I hit him up and he's like, we have a Fox body, like Mustang specific oil pan with turbo drains in it, with whatever, with options, with... And I was blown away, and it's only like $360 for the entire pan, pickup tube, and I was like, what? Like that, a brand new pan? Like it's cast, and it's already extremely small, and all this... Anyway, I don't even know that half of these products exist. So what's cool about it is I can tell you guys, a lot of it is super expensive, obviously. A lot of it is extremely fairly priced, and some of it seems flat out cheap. So I think they're doing a good job on that. And I made a joke with my rep. I was like, dude, why don't you guys advertise this stuff better? And he's like, we have like 50,000 products, and that's why we're asking you to check stuff out and tell people it exists. I'm like, touche, yeah, way to make me feel like an idiot. But totally true. That's why they need people like me and you guys to look at the products and see if they're worthwhile and tell people about it. So, again, I'm super excited. I'm totally sales pitching them, but I'm super excited for the opportunity for all this stuff. And I think all of it is good. All of it's nice. So... the ECU is incredible. I'm doing closed loop boost control. You can do bump, brake. I have a flex fuel sensor installed on my return. The ECU is looking at flex amount and modifying the fuel. So if you have a street car, you can use one of the inputs on a flex sensor, and you can mix gas and ethanol, and it will automatically, if you set it up, change timing, boost, a bunch of things. You can have it do a ton of stuff automatic. You can have it just change the fuel. You can have it do nothing other than report content for data logging purposes. You don't have to have it do anything, but it can. And that's what's cool. And also, what else are we looking at? Oil pressure, fuel pressure are nice to look at for when you're really pushing the limit on a bunch of these setups. It's really nice to data log your oil pressure and see, like I said, a couple of these cars 60 foot so hard it has oil pressure issues on the launch and on the big end. Other times, it is nice to know if you're running out of fuel. You can do safeties on this setup where if you're losing fuel pressure at certain points, you can modify the fuel flow if the fuel falls off, so you don't have to rely on the closed loop. The closed loop is incredible. On top of that, it is extremely easy to change injector size and a bunch of other things. I mean, all of it's insanely easy to use. Other than that, I took the car to the dyno the other day. We had a bunch of frustration, ignition breakup issues. This car I haven't really driven on the street at all other than some joking around, and we had a misfire, and we could not place it, and we eventually swapped enough of the ignition and some other stuff where it cleaned up, and then we revisited, and I'm pretty sure I found out which coils they are, and I'm going to try to do some home investigative and testing and see if I can find which ones it is exactly. Also... on top of that, I'm using a MAC valve for boost control. Got that little MAC valve, and it's pushing pressure back from the intake back to the top of the gates to push them shut. I have 5.5 pounds wastegate. I was able to get 20 pounds on the dyno, so probably what I'll end up doing is springing for 10 or 12. I can't imagine we're going to run less than that. If we need to, maybe we'll try to leave at a lower RPM. I set the boost target at 3,500 on the two-step, and I set the boost target for 12, and it went 3,500 and 12 pounds on the trans brake, and I was like, this is wheelie city. That's going to be pretty crazy. Anybody that races the Fox body, like, that kind of, you know, vitality out of the hole is going to be very good. So we're in a good spot to launch really hard, which is one of the only things that matters about getting the car to go fast. The other is power. We were able to easily make 730 to the tire through an auto, which is a lot of power, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of you people might be watching a lot of videos where people make a ton of power. 730 through an auto is enough to make most people brown out, just fill their drawers. So yeah, it's insane for a car. If it's going to be close to 3,000 pounds, 730 through an auto is intense. It's a staggering amount of power for a clapped out, wrong head gasketed thing that's never going to work, and on 20 pounds. And the ignition, the mark on the strap was safe. So I hate to be one of those guys that's like, there's so much left in it. We have room on 20 pounds to put more ignition, but the car was gaining 30 to 35 horsepower per pound of boost, and it wasn't falling off at 20. It was making, when we hit 20 and then we hit 21, it picked up 35 rear wheel or more. So it had no issues making power. So it'll take, I'd like to hit it with 26 pounds. At 30 rear wheel per pound, it was at, say it was at 730. 2 more pounds, 20, it was at 21-ish. 23 would have been 800. 24, 25 with a mild spark amount would have been in the 8s. 26 with decent spark is easily 850 horsepower. And a dyno is a tool, but over the last 15 years, I've seen what a 3-ish 1,000-pound car making 600 rear wheel in a Fox with a foot brake goes high 9s. Most Foxes that are on the lighter end of the spectrum, 3,000 pounds with a driver, if it makes 850, it goes 850 easy. So even if this car is a little bit on the heavy side, if we push it into the 800 range, it's going to 60 foot well with a trans brake and that kind of snot. And just, I'm not good at suspension at all. I'm leaving that up to Mark and everybody else. All the car's got to do is cut a 130 with a decent amount of power, scream straight into the 8-second range. So I think one thing we're going to do is set the boost for like 20 pounds, see if it can make a pass on 20 pounds. He might, depends on how the car does and how the people at the track are and everything else. He might come out and go 20 pounds, a half track, feel pretty good, grab the scramble. He might do an 8th mile hit on 20 and we'll weigh in. You'll be able to tell if the car can go 8s by the half track. My assumption is he's going to work on the 60 foot for a hit or two and lift by the 8th. And check his incrementals. And then if he needs or wants more power or the car isn't ready or whatever else happens, we'll change a few things. But that's the idea for now. It would be cool to just come out swinging, target like 24, and then hit the scramble for another 4 or 6 and just let it eat. And ultimate goal would be funny to just go out and go 8 and change on the first pass, but this is a fresh car and it seems to drive straight and all, but it might be nice to make a hit to the 8th and check all the bolts, make sure they're tight and shit like that. But so that, I think I've covered everything. I think the only other thing I did was I always wanted to try these. These are battery cable bulkheads, so those go in the car, in and out of the car, and they're a plastic screw-on bulkhead. So I have the battery cables running in the car to the firewall. So this goes to the starter and the alternator, and then this goes to the block for a ground for the starter. And then in the car, this is feeding a fuse panel, and this is feeding the ground on the fuse panel. And just all of it was just so neat and tidy, and that's where the power and ground is. It's so nice. I think that's one of the only things I missed. Other than that, people did, I got this in my head now. People did ask, is the car going to go 8s for legally, like NHRA legal? No, it would be too expensive. Unless you guys are like, okay, safety stuff aside, we don't care, Matt, about the safety stuff, be safe. It's going to have a cage, it's going to have belts, and that's pretty much it. We want to put a chute on it, but chutes are expensive. So we would like to get a chute on the car, but the whole thing is it's got to go 8s for 8,000, and then we can do everything else. Like I said, this is going to be a progressive build, something that we keep adding to and changing things and learning and sharing with everybody and having a lot of fun with. Also, of course, what a terrible thing that would be to have a ton of fun with. What we would eventually like to see for the engine combo is I would love to do like a 330-inch to a 360-inch pistons rods engine with maybe slightly touched up heads. I have 799s in my storage. It'd be pretty cool to maybe port them out or do like light work to them or just put them on crusty in stock. They're awful. And we would like to do Varen as a Billet Pro mod. He has a 94mm turbo with a 100 turbine. And I would love to do a 350-inch motor with that 94mm with the 4L80E and drive it in overdrive to tracks and bomb out like mid-7s and show everybody how it's done and test the Holly intakes and all sorts of other cool shit. And just let everybody know and have some fun with this car if we like it. So that's the end game, is the car is going to have a chute. It is going to have a cert. It is going to have legal belts. It is going to have all of that stuff. But like I said, there's going to be some safety equipment, but it can't all fit in the budget. So it's going to be safe enough that if we lid this thing at 150, I'm not going to die, but it's not probably going to pass tech. But that doesn't technically matter. You have to go too fast for them to kick you off the track. I always say this. We can show up and they can get as mad as we want, but if we run 12s all day, them not letting us race is a pretty shitty thing. So we just want to click off a time, be happy with the car, show everybody it can be done for extremely cheap, being resourceful. And again, like, you can see where I spent money in a bunch of places where I didn't need to. You could do this better for cheaper. And that's part of the project too, is not to be unrealistic. And then there are a bunch of things where you can take some liberties. Just don't get out of control. Watch your budget. Everything else. So I can't wait to see this thing make some hits. Change everything else and show you guys what's up. God knows how long this video is. Hopefully you figured a lot of stuff out from it. Ask me any questions I might not have covered. I think I covered everything. I traded somebody something for the 65 rad, but they're only like 65 bucks new, so I think I put it down for like 30 bucks. And I might, just for fun, completely swap out the rad and fan for... It has a junkyard fan, but I might swap the rad for a junkyard unit just to be more realistic, because this is an aluminum rad, but no, I don't really like where it is and where it sits and everything else, so it might be nicer to get like a minivan rad and fan for like 35, 40 bucks. Put it in this car, like, just to show people it doesn't matter. That's me, I'm just keep changing and thinking of things. So, let me know if you have any questions I might not have answered. Let me know if you can think of anything else. Anything I missed. Blah, blah, blah. The only things I gotta do is wire... I'm gonna get a 3-way switch and a blinker module, and wire the blinkers and the brake lights, so you can actually drive this car around. It doesn't have any bulbs in the headlights or anything. I gotta get headlight bulb. Maybe they're in one of the boxes. I have a box of like a bunch of the Mustang parts that we ripped out. Some of the wiring and everything else. So, that's it. That's pretty much where we are. I'll try to end this once more. Later, bye.